I caved in and bought the Switch for the first time after being a Sony fanboy for 28 years. Today I'm gonna show you my first experience with my new Nintendo Switch 2, and we'll see what's so special about this console and why people like this thing that costs like the PS5. And spoiler alert, it was a really good experience. I was so impressed that I would probably never go back to Sony. Or will I? Let's figure that out. My history with gaming in general isn't the one I would have wanted to have. My family was never rich enough to afford a console of any kind. Gosh, we got our first PC in 2005, so while other kids had PS2, Xbox and just started getting the next-gen consoles, I was stuck playing old PC games on a monitor the size of a shipping container. Serious Sam, Sims, Mafia, and where I'm from, Nintendo has never had a following of any kind. We all knew them for making weird-looking and strange handhelds none of us ever saw. Game Boy, DS, Wii, those were just exotic Japanese toys for the select few. Oh, how naive I was. And handhelds in general have always been my passion. Now I have one of my own, and when I first unboxed it, honestly felt like I'm 10 again and I just won PSP in a lottery. You know, this overwhelming feeling of your dream coming true, but in another form. Because like I said, I was a Sony fanboy for as long as I can remember. But Sony butchered the idea with the PS Vita, took all the good the PSP had and threw it in a dumpster. Shattered my dreams of having a console in my pocket. That's when I finally noticed Nintendo. But the Wii U wasn't exactly portable, and I never liked the idea of using two screens or a stylus to play, so 3DS was out of the question. The Switch 2 has only one screen, and I kinda have a Gen Z brain, so I can only focus on one thing at a time. So I waited. Years went by, but a console was still a dream for me. I was too poor to afford one, plain and simple. I had occasional evenings when my friends lent me their Xbox or PlayStation for the night, but that's about it. The first gen Switch was probably the only bright spot in many years since Nintendo appeared on my radar. Light, portable, with proper games. Sure, it had its flaws like a terrible screen, bad battery life and drifting Joy-Cons. Yet I was in love. Hardware is what drew me in. Cramming big budget games like Witcher 3 into a small tablet was a miracle. It still is. I feel that every time I hold the new Switch. Light, thin, powerful, with big budget games like Cyberpunk. How did they even do that? It's just such a pleasure to use it, to hold it. Feels like something Apple would have created. The Joy-Con magnets feel strong and the whole build feels sturdy and rigid. Even when I hold it with one hand, I'm not afraid I'm gonna drop it. Yeah, it's kinda heavy to hold with one hand, but with a two like it's intended, it's almost weightless for me. After hours of playing, my wrists feel brand new, even though my body has already started crumbling down. Years went by. I finished school, did my bachelor's, and almost forgot that games used to be my passion, that I was obsessed with them. Until I bought the PS4 Slim. The year was 2020. The PS5 was just around the corner, but there was I, ecstatic to play The Last of Us and The God of War. Yeah, I was pretty late to the party. And you all know how good the PS4 was. The controller, the performance, the system, and most importantly, the games. It had it all. AAA exclusives, indie, and the longer I played, the less I understood people buying Switch and playing Mario. Why would you even play that when you have a freaking god beating the shit out of other gods? Or sad people in the world full of sad people? Or the treasure hunter that's ready to eliminate a whole army just for some gold coins? All those kid-like Mario games seemed childish to me, simplistic. There were occasional proper games like The Witcher. Wasn't enough to sway me over back then, but it planted the seed in my brain that Switch could play decent games. I just had to wait. Switch 1 was weak and had no power, but the Switch 2 has all the power it needs to run Cyberpunk with the heavy DLC, Red Dead Redemption, and a bunch of other A-list games. So far, I've only played Zelda, because the cartridge came with the Switch, but it impressed me enough to get Tears of the Kingdom too. It's true, Mario has never impressed me, because when do I get to shoot things? Where's the fighting? Zelda has it, and so much more. It all changed last year when I bought a car and went on a 5-month road trip crossing 11 countries. with all the exploration I needed something to unwind, to relax, and I had nothing but my phone, my iPad and my Mac. And as we all know, mobile games suck. Prove me otherwise in the comments. So when Switch 2 was finally released and had a launch date, I knew I had to get it. It was time for me to try something new, to kill two birds with one stone. I was getting a next-gen console, I was leading the pack, and I was also getting a portable gaming setup, ready to make any evening better. $450, that's a lot of money that I didn't pay, because I paid around $600 thanks to EU's fantastic added costs. I could have gotten a PS5 and a decent used TV for that kind of money, but I got a Switch, and the first hours were confusing, to say the least. For starters, the layout is shit. I still think that, even though I'm fairly used to it. The buttons feel a bit too small and cramped, and the sticks are in the wrong places, especially the blue one. So hit the like button if you want Nintendo to give us options for Joy-Con layouts, and sub to the channel to support me. YouTube is my only job right now, so I really need your help. By the way, where did all the color go? I really liked colorful Joy-Cons, and the white ones from the OLED Switch have always been my favorite. And yeah, I've been to Nintendo shop, and they don't sell white Joy-Cons. What a shame. But yeah, the left stick is just way too high, because the right one is perfectly placed for me to put the tip of my finger on it, giving me precise controls. And when I need to reach the buttons, I can easily do that. But on the left, it's the other way around. I know, some people really like this Xbox-like layout. I'm just not one of them. I really like the symmetry of the DualShock way more. It just feels more natural when both fingers do the exact same motion. Way more intuitive this way. The controls in the games are another thing. The default layout for Zelda, for example, is drastically different from the Sony layout I'm used to. I know, I can remap it, but it's something to keep in mind. And since I've started ranting about the controls, I really miss some grips like the DualShock has. Sure, there was a controller dummy in the box with the Switch, and it has those grips. But I'm traveling now, and I don't have it with me. And even if I did, the main goal of having a Switch is to use it handheld, and detaching Joy-Cons just feels pointless. And again, Nintendo doesn't sell the grips. I can surely get them on Amazon, but they all look clunky and cheap and just out of the question. I remember saying that this was a good experience, yet so far all I did was shit on the controls. And I think it's well deserved. Like this video if you're on my side, leave an angry comment if you're not. There were good things, I promise. Like the system itself. This was honestly a revelation to me. I didn't expect it to be so tactile, so alive. I'm used to iOS being silent and Sony OS being full of repeated sounds and stereo imagination. But the Switch OS, it kinda blew my mind. For starters, it's incredibly simple. I just have a list of games and a small bar at the bottom. That's it. No videos playing anywhere, achievement bars, text, just the games and the menu bar. And navigating all of it is such a treat, mostly because of the sound. Every single button or menu has its own set of sounds. Opening settings, eShop, capture gallery, scrolling through games. It's also rich and unique, almost like ASMR, even though I hate ASMR. Here it just works, and this simplicity is everywhere. In settings you only have the bare necessities, nothing else. It is as straightforward as it can possibly be. No web browser, no video playback, no music, and that's kinda what is somewhat disappointing for me, because my old PS4 has YouTube, Netflix, web browser, it's a media center basically, but Switch has none of it. YouTube isn't supported, Netflix doesn't even exist. Even my iPad has all that. All these gripes make sense for a short while, but the point of this console is that it's not what we expect it to be. We want to get a multimedia machine capable of everything, while the only real purpose of Switch's entire existence is playing games. And it feels so nice to have one thing dedicated to only one thing. Like, I can properly turn off my brain and be in the moment without any distractions. Sure, I can play games on my iPad, but I will constantly get the notifications and I'll be just tempted to open YouTube after every boring cutscene. With Switch, I can only do one thing, play games. No distractions, notifications, people calling me or messaging me. That's the real way to enjoy games, the only way. And I might not be the biggest Nintendo fan out there. I still don't think I like Nintendo games that much, but I guess it all comes down to art design. Nintendo has always been like that. Cute games with great gameplay. And you know what? It's kinda working for me. Sure, I would love Zelda to be as detailed and rich as Cyberpunk, but there's just something magical and special about the muted colors, simplistic design and huge empty areas. I like when games are huge and detailed and have a great story that I can follow, but games like that don't always mean rest for the mind. That's exactly why I'm thinking of buying Mario Odyssey. I'm willing to give it a try. And thanks to Cyberpunk, we all know that Switch 2 can handle big games. It can run them just fine, so I really hope we'll see some AAA releases from the PS4 era. Maybe not Sony exclusives, that would never happen, but maybe some cross-platform games like Red Dead Redemption. But truth be told, playing Cyberpunk on Switch would be a bad idea. It's just too small to properly enjoy the graphics in handheld, and the battery life is too bad to handle such a game for more than 2 hours. Yup, the first-gen Switch problems are back. But I don't actually care about the battery life. I'm used to charging my devices every day. My watch, my phone, my tablet. Adding a Switch barely makes a difference. And for the long flights or bus rides, Switch has a low enough draw that even a power bank lets me play comfortably. So no, regardless of what every reviewer says, battery life isn't a problem. Because the only argument they have is that long sessions aren't for the Switch, and that's by design. For me, playing for 2 hours is just enough to chill. 4 hours would surely be better, but I only have that much free time. And like I said, I'm traveling now, so I have other things to do with my time than playing games. What I really like about the Switch 2 is how polished it is. Everything just works the way you expect. I can connect wireless headphones, no problem. It was a problem on the first-gen Switch. There are just no surprises here. Except for prices for games. Those are outrageous. $100 for the Donkey Kong? That's way too much. I'm gonna wait for the used one. And for other games, I just buy the version for the first gen. And here I am. I started the video as a Sony fanboy, hell-bent on using only Sony stuff, but now I'm in love with my Switch. There surely are things I'm missing, and things I'd like to change, but overall, it was a great buy, money well spent. But I don't think you should buy it right now. It's only been a couple months, and Nintendo needs time to iron out the kinks, fix the battery life, and so on. And there's just not that many games for the second Switch. Most of those are available on the first gen too, and the first gen is dirt cheap right now. I saw offers for less than $100, and the first Switch can be modded. I'm not supporting piracy here, but it's just something to keep in mind, especially if $60, $70 or $99 for a game is too much for you. So as a gateway handheld, I'd say the first gen Switch is better. And yeah, even if you're an avid Sony or Xbox fan, Switch 2 won't let you down. You just have to stay open-minded.